The discovery. The research vessel Kepler's Dream drifted silently through the uncharted sector, its sleek hull reflecting the distant starlight. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling anomaly that filled the main view screen. After 15 years of xenorchaeology, she thought she'd seen everything the galaxy had to offer. She was wrong. "Status report," she demanded, not taking her eyes off the screen. Dr. Sanjay Mehta, the ship's chief scientist, looked up from his console. "The temporal readings are off the charts, Commander. Whatever this is, it's bending space-time around itself, almost like a self-contained bubble." "A natural phenomenon?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. Sanjay shook his head. "No way. The patterns are too regular, too artificial." Lieutenant Commander Zhou Chen, Elena's second-in-command, joined them at the console. "The Galactic Council's going to want us to pull back. This sector is already flagged as potentially hazardous." Elena's jaw tightened. "We're the first research team to make it this far into the Cygnus Void. I'm not turning back until we know what we're looking at." The anomaly had first appeared on their long-range scanners 3 days ago. What initially registered as a gravitational distortion had revealed itself to be something far more complex, a pocket of space where time itself seemed to flow differently. "I'm picking up solid masses within the anomaly," reported Terran, the Arcturian sensor specialist. His four-fingered hands moved gracefully over the controls. Large ones, consistent with vessels. Elena's heart raced. "Ships, inside a temporal bubble. If I'm reading this correctly," Terran continued, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with excitement, "there are at least 50 of them, and they appear to be in some kind of suspended animation." Elena made a decision. "Bring us closer. Minimum safe distance. I want visual confirmation." The Kepler's Dream edged forward, its advanced engines barely making a sound as they propelled the ship toward the anomaly. As they approached, the distortion in space became visible to the naked eye, a shimmering, translucent barrier that separated normal space from whatever lay within. "Magnifying," Sanjay said, his fingers dancing across the controls. The view screen adjusted, cutting through the distortion to reveal what lay beyond. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Ships, dozens of them. But unlike any vessels she had ever seen before, their designs were angular, aggressive, clearly built for war rather than exploration or commerce. And they were massive, dwarfing the Kepler's Dream despite its substantial size. But what truly shocked Elena wasn't their size or their obvious military purpose. It was the insignia clearly visible on their hulls, stylized representations of Earth, surrounded by ancient human military symbols that hadn't been used in tens of thousands of years. "Those are human ships," she whispered. "Ancient human warships." "Impossible," Zoe muttered beside her. "Humanity hasn't built war vessels like that since before the Great Harmony," Sanjay finished. "These ships must be from the Lost Era, over 1 million years old." The Lost Era, that tumultuous period of human history before the peaceful unification with other sentient species, a time of conflict and expansion that most modern humans viewed with a mixture of embarrassment and fascination. Most artifacts from that period had been destroyed during subsequent wars or had simply crumbled to dust over the centuries. Yet here floated an entire fleet, apparently preserved in perfect condition within this temporal bubble. "Are you getting any readings from inside the vessels?" Elena asked, her academic excitement now overriding her initial caution. Terran adjusted his scanners. "Minimal power signatures. Life support systems appear to be active." "That can't be right." "Life support," Zoe echoed. "After 1 million years. Time flows differently inside the anomaly," Sanjay reminded them. "What's been 1 million years for us might have been only moments for them." Elena made another decision. "Prep a shuttle. I want a closer look." "Commander," Zoe protested, "protocol clearly states." "I know the protocol." Elena cut her off. "But this discovery could rewrite everything we know about human history." Ongoing. 4 hours later, Alina found herself floating in a specialized environmental suit, just meters away from the largest vessel in the fleet. Up close, the ship was even more impressive, a behemoth of dark metal and weaponry that made the Kepler's Dream look like a pleasure yacht by comparison. The hull is composed of materials I can't even identify. Sanjay's voice came through her comm. He had insisted on joining the expedition, along with Terran and 2 security officers. Some kind of composite alloy that's not in any of our databases. Elena ran her gloved hand along the ship's surface. Despite its apparent age, there was no corrosion, no deterioration. The temporal field must have preserved it perfectly. "Commander," Terran called from several meters away. "I found what appears to be an access port." The team gathered around what was clearly an airlock, primitive by modern standards, but still recognizable. Terran scanners indicated that there was pressure behind it, though the atmosphere was not breathable by modern human standards. "Can we interface with it?" Elena asked. Sanjay nodded, already connecting a universal adapter to what appeared to be an external control panel. Their technology is archaic, but the principles should be similar enough. For several tense minutes, Sanjay worked to establish a connection between their modern equipment and the ancient systems. Finally, the adapter's lights turned green. "I'm in," he announced. "Basic systems only, but it's something." Elena peered over his shoulder at the readout. "Can you access their logs? Find out what this fleet was doing here." "I'm trying, but most systems are in a dormant state." However, his voice trailed off as new data flowed across his screen. "Wait, I'm detecting active cryogenic pods. Hundreds of them." The team fell silent as the implications sank in. "Are you saying," Elena began slowly, "that there are humans from the Lost Era still alive aboard this vessel?" "In stasis, yes," Sanjay confirmed. "And according to these readings, the ship's automated systems are beginning a revival sequence. Our presence must have triggered some kind of protocol." Before Elena could respond, the airlock before them suddenly illuminated, ancient mechanisms grinding to life. The team backed away instinctively as the massive door began to cycle open. "We need to get back to the shuttle," Zoe urged. "Now." But Elena stood her ground. "No, we came here for first contact. This is just happening sooner than we expected." The airlock completed its cycle, revealing the dimly lit corridor beyond. And standing in the threshold, wearing a uniform that hadn't been seen in a million years, was a human figure. The man was tall, with close-cropped hair and the bearing of someone used to command. His eyes widened at the sight of the research team in their environmental suits. He spoke, and though the language was an archaic form of standard, Elena's translator had no trouble with it. "I am Captain Marcus Vega of the Earth Defense Force vessel Invincible. Identify yourselves and explain your presence aboard my ship." Elena felt as though history itself was reaching out to touch her. She stepped forward and removed her helmet. The airlock had equalized with breathable air. "I am Commander Elena Reyes of the research vessel Kepler's Dream, representing the galactic harmony of sentient species." She paused, uncertain how to explain. "Captain Vega, this may be difficult to believe, but according to our calendar, your fleet has been suspended in a temporal anomaly for approximately 1 million standard years." Vega's face remained impassive, but Elena saw the shock register in his eyes. "That's not possible. We were executing Operation Timelock against the Void Eaters. The temporal displacement was only supposed to last for 72 hours. "The Void Eaters?" Sanjay asked. "We have no historical record of such an enemy." Vega's expression darkened. "Then our mission failed. They should have been trapped in the same temporal field as us." He straightened, military training reasserting itself despite the shocking news. "I need to revive my senior officers immediately, and I need to know everything about your galactic harmony and the current state of Earth's defenses." Elena exchanged glances with her team. The ancient captain had just mentioned an enemy that had been lost to history, possibly for good reason. "Of course, Captain, but perhaps we should begin with..." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship, cutting her off mid-sentence. Captain Vega's head snapped toward a nearby console that had sprung to life, its archaic displays flashing urgent warnings. "No," he whispered, the color draining from his face. "They're waking up too." "What's waking up?" Elena demanded. Vega turned to her, his eyes now filled with a terror that transcended the millennium that separated them. "The Void Eaters, the enemy we were fighting. If we've awakened from the temporal stasis, then they have too." He moved with sudden urgency toward the interior of the ship. "And your galactic harmony has no idea what's coming." As if to punctuate his warning, the Invincible's ancient systems began powering up all around them. Lights flickered on throughout the massive vessel, and the distant rumble of engines stirring to life reverberated through the hull. "Captain," Elena called after him, "we need to contact my ship. Explain what's happening." Vega paused just long enough to fix her with a look of grim determination. "Commander Rise, you said it's been 1,000,000 years. Tell me, in all that time, has humanity forgotten how to fight?" The question hung in the air between them, a challenge from the past to the present. We evolved beyond war," Elena admitted. "The galactic harmony has known peace for almost 300,000 years." Vega nodded, as if her answer confirmed his worst fears. "Then it's fortunate we've returned, because the Void Eaters don't know the meaning of peace. They only understand consumption." As if responding to his words, the massive warship trembled around them. Throughout the fleet, ancient weapons were awakening, preparing for a war that had never truly ended. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, something else was stirring. An ancient hunger that had waited 1,000,000 years to feed again. Resurgence. Admiral Koretsky of the Galactic Harmony Defense Force stared at the holographic display with undisguised skepticism. The projection showed the ancient human battle fleet, now fully awakened and forming a defensive perimeter around the Kepler's Dream. "You expect me to believe this?" she asked, her weathered face creased with disbelief. "That 1,000,000-year-old human battle fleet has not only survived, but is now warning us about some forgotten enemy called Void Eaters." Elena Reyes maintained her composure despite the Admiral's skepticism. "I understand your doubts, Admiral, but I've been aboard their flagship. I've spoken with their commander. Captain Vega's concerns are genuine, and given the temporal readings we've recorded, entirely plausible." The communication relay from the Kepler's Dream to Harmony Command Station suffered a 3-second delay, giving Elena unwelcome time to contemplate how insane her report must sound. A fleet from humanity's violent past, warning of an ancient enemy that had somehow been erased from historical records. It strained credibility beyond breaking point. Yet she had seen the fear in Captain Vega's eyes. Not the fear of a man displaced in time, but the fear of a soldier who knew exactly what threat they faced. Admiral Koretsky rubbed her temples. "Commander, even if I wanted to believe this, the Council would never approve military action based on the word of temporal refugees. The Defense Force hasn't fired a weapon in anger for millennia. We're peacekeepers, not warriors." "With respect, Admiral," Elena replied, "that may be precisely the problem. The Void Eaters, as Captain Vega describes them, aren't an enemy that understands diplomacy or peaceful resolution." Before Koretsky could respond, the communication was interrupted by Sanjay's urgent face. "Commander, you need to return to the Invincible immediately. Captain Vega has accessed their long-range sensors, and, well, you need to see this for yourself." 20 minutes later, Elena stood on the bridge of the ancient warship, surrounded by officers who should have died countless generations before her birth. The bridge was a stark contrast to the sleek, ergonomic command centers of modern vessels, all hard angles, utilitarian displays, and unmistakably designed for warfare. Captain Vega stood before the main tactical display, his face grim. More of his crew had been revived from stasis, all of them adapting to their temporal displacement with the disciplined focus of trained soldiers. They had a mission, and the passage of 1,000,000 years hadn't changed that. This is why we initiated Operation Timelock, Vega explained, gesturing to the display. It showed a sector of space approximately 12 light years from their position. Within that sector, something was moving, not like a ship or any conventional object, but like a stain spreading across reality itself, a darkness that seemed to consume the very starlight around it. The Void Eaters, Elena whispered. Yes, Vega confirmed. We discovered them when humanity first pushed beyond the Sol system. They exist partially outside normal spacetime, feeding on energy in all its forms, from stars to civilization itself. If they're so dangerous, why is there no record of them in our history? Elena asked. Commander Sarah Chen, Vega's tactical officer, answered. Because we were winning until we weren't. Earth's military forces had developed weapons specifically to target their extra-dimensional aspects. We had them contained, pushed back to a handful of systems. Operation Timelock was supposed to be the final solution. Trap them in a temporal stasis field where they could never harm anyone again. But you got caught in your own trap, Elena concluded. A miscalculation, Vega admitted. The temporal effect propagated faster than we anticipated. But now we're free. And so are they. Elena studied the tactical display more closely. These readings, they're similar to anomalies that have been detected in several sectors over the past decade. Our scientists classified them as natural phenomena. There's nothing natural about them, Commander Chen said grimly. Those are feeding sites. The Void Eaters consume energy, but they also consume matter, technology, even living beings. They break everything down to its component particles and absorb it. If they've been active for a decade already, Vega added, then they've been rebuilding their strength, and your galactic harmony has been ignoring the warning signs. Elena felt a chill run through her. How do we stop them? Vega's face hardened with resolve. The same way we were stopping them 1,000,000 years ago, with this fleet and the weapons it carries. Back on the Kepler's Dream, Elena faced a mutiny of concerns from her crew. Zoe paced the conference room, her agitation evident in every step. You can't seriously be considering this, she protested. Activating million-year-old weapons of mass destruction based on the word of people who, by their own admission, were at war when they were trapped in stasis. I've seen the sensor readings, Elena replied calmly. Something is consuming entire star systems at the edge of the Cygnus sector. Something that matches exactly what Captain Vega describes. Sanjay, who had spent hours interfacing with the ancient fleet's databases, looked up from his datapad. The technology they're using, it's beyond anything we have today. Their understanding of dimensional physics is actually more advanced than ours in some ways. They developed their weapons specifically to combat these Void Eaters. That doesn't make it right, Zoe argued. We represent the galactic harmony. We don't unilaterally decide to deploy weapons that could destabilize entire regions of space. And while we debate, Terran said quietly, his usual calm demeanor subdued. The Void Eaters spread. I've analyzed the patterns. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach populated systems within 17 days. Elena made her decision. We need to bring Captain Vega to Harmony Council. Let them hear directly from him. If nothing else, we need to begin evacuations of the threatened systems. The Harmony Council chamber was not designed for military briefings. Its soaring architecture and circular arrangement of seats reflected thousands of years of peaceful cooperation between species. Captain Marcus Vega looked distinctly out of place as he stood in the center of the chamber, still wearing his Earth Defense Force uniform. Counselors, he began, his voice strong despite the overwhelming strangeness of addressing beings from dozens of species that hadn't even been discovered during his lifetime. I understand your skepticism. I would feel the same in your position. But the threat I'm describing is real, and it is imminent. High Counselor Kulvaran, a Centaurian with iridescent scales and multiple eye stalks, leaned forward. Captain, while we don't dismiss your warnings outright, you must understand our position. You're asking us to sanction the use of weapons that have been banned for hundreds of thousands of years, based on a threat we have no contemporary evidence for. With respect, Counselor, Vega replied, you do have evidence. The anomalies your scientists have been detecting match the signature of Void Eater consumption patterns exactly. They're rebuilding their strength, just as they did in my time. And what exactly are these Void Eaters? Asked Counselor T'Prel, the Vulcanite representative. Your descriptions have been imprecise. Vega nodded to Commander Chen, who activated a holographic projection in the center of the chamber. It showed what appeared to be a tear in space itself, from which extended amorphous, shadow-like tendrils. They aren't a species in the conventional sense, Vega explained. They're entities that exist partially in our dimension, and partially in others. We theorize that they originated from a universe where entropy has already reached its maximum state, a dead reality. They found a way into our universe and began consuming energy to sustain themselves. And your solution, Culverin stated, was to develop weapons that could affect them across dimensional boundaries. Yes, Vega confirmed without apology. Conventional weapons were useless against them, so we created unconventional ones. The debate continued for hours, with the council divided on how to proceed. Some dismissed Vega's warnings entirely as the paranoid fears of a soldier out of time. Others advocated for precautionary evacuations while more research was conducted. Only a few supported immediate military action. Throughout it all, Belina watched Captain Vega, a man displaced by a million years, trying to convince a peaceful society that war had found them once again. When the council finally called a recess to consider their options, Alina approached Vega in the antechamber. They're not going to believe you, she said quietly. Not until they see the threat for themselves. Vega's jaw clenched. By then it will be too late for many. I know, Alina agreed, which is why I've been thinking about alternatives. 3 days later, as the council continued to deliberate, alarm sirens sounded throughout Harmony Station. The Void Eaters had accelerated their expansion, consuming an uninhabited system just 6 light-years from a major Harmony colony. In the emergency session that followed, Captain Vega didn't bother with diplomacy. You're out of time, he told the assembled counselors. The Void Eaters have detected your civilization's energy outputs. You're a beacon to them, a feast waiting to be consumed. High Counselor Culverin's scales had lost their luster, a sign of extreme stress in Centaurians. The Defense Force is mobilizing to evacuate the threatened colonies, but our ships have no weapons capable of combating these entities. Mine do, Vega stated simply. The silence that followed was deafening. What are you proposing, Captain? T'Prel asked finally. A joint operation, Vega replied. My fleet will engage the Void Eaters directly. Your vessels will provide support, evacuation capabilities, and serve as our eyes and ears. We'll need to integrate our sensor arrays to effectively track the enemy. And after? Culverin pressed. If you succeed. Vega met the counselor's gaze steadily. Then we finish what we started 1,000,000 years ago. We push them back to a single point and implement a modified version of Operation Timelock, one that won't catch us in its effect this time. The plan was approved by the narrowest of margins. Despite the urgency, many counselors couldn't reconcile themselves to authorizing weapons that violated thousands of years of peace treaties. But faced with an existential threat, pragmatism won out over principle. The integration of ancient human warships with the Harmony Defense Force created surreal scenes throughout the fleet. Modern peacekeeping vessels, sleek and primarily designed for scientific and humanitarian missions, formed up alongside the angular, weaponized behemoths from humanity's past. On the bridge of the Invincible, now serving as the fleet's command vessel, Captain Vega stood before a mixed crew of his own people and volunteers from the Harmony forces. Alina Reyes among them. The enemy will emerge from subspace at these coordinates, Vega explained, highlighting a region on the tactical display. They follow predictable consumption patterns, moving from one energy source to the next in order of magnitude. Our advantage is that we know how they think, if you can call it thinking. And our disadvantage? Asked Admiral Koretsky, who had been assigned as liaison between the ancient fleet and Harmony forces. 1,000,000 years of evolution, Commander Chen answered. They may have adapted in ways we can't predict. The battle plan was elegant in its simplicity. The ancient fleet would engage the Void Eaters directly with their dimensional weaponry, driving them toward a specially prepared trap, a modified temporal stasis generator installed on an unmanned vessel. Meanwhile, Harmony ships would maintain a perimeter, ensuring no Void Eater tendrils escaped the engagement zone. 2 hours before the expected emergence of the Void Eaters, Alina found Vega alone in his ready room, studying old mission logs. "Second thoughts?" she asked. He looked up, a tired smile crossing his face. "About the mission?" "No. About what comes after." "Maybe. You're worried about your place in this new galaxy." Vega nodded. "My crew and I, we're relics. Living museum pieces from a time your civilization has moved beyond. If we succeed tomorrow, what then? Where do soldiers fit in your peaceful harmony?" Helena considered this. Perhaps as guardians. The galaxy may have been peaceful for thousands of years, but peace isn't the natural state of the universe. Something always emerges from the darkness eventually. "Like us," Vega said wryly. "Like you," Helena agreed with a smile. "Though I'd like to think you're protection rather than threat." The moment was interrupted by the ship's alarm. Commander Chen's voice came over the comm. "Captain, to the bridge. They're early." The Void Eaters emerged not as ships or distinct entities, but as tiers in the fabric of reality itself. The tactical display showed them as amorphous shadows, spreading outward from a central point like ink through water. "All vessels, maintain formation," Vega ordered, his voice calm despite the eldritch horror unfolding before them. "Dimensional weapons online. Target the primary convergence point." The ancient warships moved with surprising grace, positioning themselves in a precise formation around the Void Eater emergence. Energy readings from their weapon systems climbed to levels that made the Harmony sensors flash warnings. "What we're seeing," Vega explained to Alina and Admiral Koretsky, "is just the shadow they cast in our dimension. The weapons target their true forms in the subspace between realities." "Fire," Vega commanded. The ancient fleet unleashed weapons that bent light and space around them. Beams of energy that seemed to phase in and out of existence struck the Void Eater manifestation. Where they hit, the darkness recoiled, tendrils of void matter writhing in what might have been pain. "It's working," Alina breathed. But the victory was short-lived. The Void Eaters adapted, their amorphous forms shifting to avoid the dimensional weapons. Tendrils of darkness reached out toward the nearest Harmony vessels, not attacking, but consuming. A science vessel vanished in seconds, leaving nothing but scattered particles in its wake. "They've evolved," Commander Chen reported tensely. "Changing tactics. Pattern Alpha 7. The ancient warships adjusted their formation, weapons recalibrating to the new threat pattern. But it was clear the battle wasn't proceeding as planned. The Void Eaters weren't being pushed toward the trap. They were expanding in all directions, threatening to overwhelm the fleet's perimeter. "We need to synchronize the dimensional phasing," Vega decided. "All weapons, all ships, one target point. Create a cascade effect." "That will leave the perimeter exposed," Admiral Koretsky protested. "If we don't focus our firepower, we'll lose the entire fleet," Vega countered. "Trust me, Admiral. This is what we trained for." The ancient ships converged their fire on a single point within the Void Eater mass. The combined effect created a reaction unlike anything Alina had ever seen, a cascading implosion that caused the darkness to collapse in on itself. "Now," Vega ordered, "launch the temporal device." An unmanned vessel carrying the modified stasis generator accelerated toward the collapsing mass of void matter. As it reached the center, it detonated, creating a blinding flash that momentarily overloaded all sensors. When the displays cleared, the Void Eaters were gone. In their place was a perfect sphere of distorted space, a temporal stasis field containing the threat. "Did we get them all?" Elena asked, scanning the readings. Vega studied the sensors intently. "I think so. The field is stable. As long as it remains that way, they're trapped outside normal spacetime, permanently this time." The aftermath of the battle brought changes to the galactic harmony. The Council, faced with irrefutable evidence of a threat they'd been unprepared for, established a new branch of the Defense Force dedicated to monitoring and guarding against extra-dimensional threats. Captain Vega and his crew, having nowhere else to go, were integrated into this new force. Their knowledge and experience proving invaluable as the Harmony adapted to a universe that was not, perhaps, as peaceful as they had believed. 1 year later, Elena Reyes, now director of the newly formed Dimensional Security Division, stood beside Vega on the observation deck of Harmony Station. Below them, engineers from a dozen species worked alongside humans from the ancient fleet, developing new technologies that combined 1,000,000 years of divergent evolution. "We're not so different, your time and mine," Vega observed. "Both exploring the unknown, both finding things we weren't prepared for." "The difference," Elena replied, "is that when we found something we weren't prepared for, you were there to help us face it." Vega smiled, the weight of 1,000,000 years finally beginning to lift from his shoulders. "And now we face the future together, whatever it brings." Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the temporal stasis field containing the Void Eaters remained stable, a monument to humanity's past and a shield protecting its future. And around it, ships of the new Dimensional Security Force maintained their vigilant watch, ready for whatever might emerge from the darkness next. Because if humanity had learned anything from this encounter with its past, it was that peace required protection, and sometimes guardians from the darkest times were needed to preserve the brightest future.